Okay, so just looking out the audience, I do know a few of you. If you know me, thank you for being here. I appreciate your support. If you don't know me, let me just take one moment to introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Perkinson. I'm a student here at Lewis & Clark. I'm actually in my last semester. I'm about to graduate in May, which is like happy and sad. I know my best friend's out loud and she's sad about it. But it's a good and a bad thing, right? I'm sad to leave, but excited for the next chapter. I'm involved in a few things here on campus. So I am vice president of the Student Government Association, so I get to work with them. I'm also a member of Phi Theta Kappa, the Honor Society here, and I'm co-president of our chapter here on campus, Eta Psi. And then, of course, I'm an honors college student. This is an honors college, this is my honors college project. This is what I'm doing as my project this year. I'll talk a little bit more about honors college and this project and everything in just a moment. I am transferring to Greenville University in the fall to double major in theology and English, so that should give you some insight as to why I picked this topic for my project. So, just to kind of take a survey of the room, how many of you have heard of honors college? If you know me, I know you've heard of it because I talk about it enough. Okay, awesome. How many of you know, like, in detail what honors college is? So just a few of you. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to take just a minute to talk about honors college. So honors college is something that we have here on campus. And if you've taken like honors classes in high school, my guess is that they're probably like harder versions of whatever the regular classes. So if you take like honors English, it's just like a more difficult English class, most likely. The honors program here at Lewis & Clark is a little bit different. It's amazing. We do take a couple of honors courses, but we also get to do some extra things. So we get to do a lot of outside the classroom learning. And then one of the things that we get to do is we get to create these honors projects. So what we do is we pick a class that we're already taking, and we create an honors project based around that subject. We work with the professor that we're taking that class with, and then we get to present it in a form like this, but then we also get to present it at an expo that happens in May. So this year, we did a little bit different last year. This year what we're doing is May 3rd through the 10th. The expo is basically going to be open for anyone who wants to come see the project. So all the projects that myself and all the students have worked on all semester are going to be set up. So if you really enjoy this panel today, there's going to be kind of like a highlight reel of it at the expo, so I'd encourage you to come to that when you can. Bring your friends and family if you want them to see it. Also, I do want to mention this event is being live streamed to the Lewis & Clark Facebook page, and it's going to be up there, it's going to stay there, so if you want to share it later, feel free to do that. We would greatly appreciate it. Let's see. Okay, so I am going to talk a little bit about this project. It's called Faith and Feminism, a conversation about equality. So I'll kind of tell you a little bit of my story to kind of explain how I came to wanting to do a project like this. So from a very young age, I came to have my own personal faith in God through a very personal experience. And you know how like when you're in school and you have those situations where it's like you have like the brainiac kids and you have like the band kids, like everyone kind of has their own little thing, like you know that they just fit. I didn't fit really into any of those, which sounds sad, but it is what it is. But like I said, I came to faith at a very young age, and I knew that I wanted to do something with religion. I knew that I wanted to study that. I knew that I wanted to build a career based on that. And honors college gave me the opportunity to do that, which is really exciting. So, one thing I will say, we're talking about feminism, we're talking about equality, we're talking about religion. These are all very kind of hotbed topics. They're a little bit polarizing, right? People kind of have strong views on them. Maybe you're here and you don't really have any opinion on it either way, and that's okay too. I hope that whatever category you fall into, we can all just learn something today. That's really what we're here to do. So, with all that being said, one thing that I learned putting a project like this together is that it is not a one-person project, it's not a one-woman show. It has taken so many people coming together to make this happen, and all those people really deserve all the credit. I know my name's up here, and I know I'm standing on stage, but really it's all the other people who were involved that made this possible. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take just a minute to kind of run through and thank all of them properly. First, I want to thank my parents. My parents are in the audience. My parents are amazing, and they're here for everything that I do on campus, and I do a lot of it. I always want to thank them first because without them, I really wouldn't be able to do anything that I've done on campus. I mean, they've really just allowed me to take the last 2 years to focus on school, and they always support me and always back me. So thank you, Mom and Dad. Sorry, I'm about to start crying because I love my parents. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Okay, so next I want to thank Mueller. I don't think he's here today, but Aaron, I took comparative religions with Aaron last summer. And so this project is in collaboration with him, and it is with that class. If you're a student, I really encourage you to take that class. It's an amazing course. Aaron is an incredible teacher. He's also just one of the nicest people I've ever met, so definitely take that with him if you get the chance, but thank you, Aaron. I want to thank Peter Hussey and Jen Klein. They are the honors coordinators, and their support throughout this thing has just been, like, incredible. I mean, you guys have just been there for me. Peter is probably happy that this project is, like, concluding because I've been emailing him and texting him so much with all my questions. He's been my go-to guy because this is my first time doing anything like this, and he kind of knew what to do, so he was very helpful. So thank you, Peter. Jen Klein, she is the reason Honors College exists. So without her, I wouldn't have this opportunity. And also, she's the reason that I personally am in Honors College. I took her Sociology 131 course last spring, and she was the one who kind of introduced me to honors and told me that I should be a part of it. So thank you, Jen. Thank you, Peter. I love you both very much. I want to thank Media Services here on campus. So Louise, Laura, Monica, they are responsible for the programs that you're holding. They're the ones live streaming here. They've kind of been a part, they did the press release, so if you saw the article in the Telegraph and all of that, that was them. Having them here just to kind of promote the event and help me with all of those things that I couldn't do, I really appreciate. They did a knockout job as they always do, so thank you to Media Services. Go ahead and give them a round of applause. I also want to thank Brian McKinney. So Brian is the one who manages this building, and he is the reason the stage looks as good as it does. I couldn't do this, you know what I mean? But he made sure it was done. He made sure all the tables and everything were set up. He does the lights, he does everything in here, and this event wouldn't look as put together if I was doing it. So thanks, Brian. He's amazing. Give him a round of applause. He's great. I also want to thank Jared Hennings and Christine Strohide. So they are the ones who are responsible for the pizza that you're going to get after this event is over, which I'll talk about that in just a minute. Because I know everyone wants to know about that pizza, right? But they're responsible for that. So thank you, Jared and Christine, for making sure that everyone here is fed. We love you. So I also have an incredible support group of friends around me. I have the best friends in the entire world. I'm the most fortunate human being, and I don't deserve any one of them. But they all are helping me today. Some of them are in the audience just giving me moral support, but some of them are actually like kind of doing things. So I just want to call those people out real quick. A lot of them are from PTK and Honors, so thank you to them. So Liberty and Gail, they're the ones who were checking you in at the entrance. There they are right there in the front waving their hands. Thank you both so much. Haley, where's Haley? She's up there. She's going to be one of my mic runners. Her and Elizabeth Grant, who's sitting out in the audience, they're going to be my mic runners, so there's going to be a Q&A portion a little bit later in the program, and they're going to be running the mics around for me, so thank you both. And then Maddie and Taylor. I know Taylor is here. I don't know if Maddie is here yet. There's Taylor. I don't see Maddie, but that's okay. So they're going to be helping serve pizza a little bit later, so just make sure if you see any of those people, just to tell them that they're awesome, because they are, and they're really helping me out. And this event wouldn't be possible without all of them filling all those roles. Last but not least, I do want to thank the Lewis Clark Diversity Council. They are the ones sponsoring this event, so it really would not be possible without them. Peter Hussey is the chair of that, and so thank you, Peter, and thank you to everyone on the Diversity Council. I really appreciate you. Okay, so I'm almost done running through all of this, but just to run through the agenda a little bit, of course we are doing a panel, so I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask our panelists, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. And then at the end, the last few minutes, there's going to be an audience Q&A portion. I don't know if you came prepared with a question, but if you're listening and you develop a question over the course of the panel, please feel free to ask it at the end. As I just mentioned, Elizabeth and Haley are going to be running mics, so you won't have to come up to the mic. They will take it to you, just raise their hand and they'll be there. Let's see. Yes, so pizza and drinks to follow, as I mentioned. Pizza is completely free, so just make sure you get some of that before you leave. It's going to be served in the lobby, so the easiest way when you exit the building is going to be just to take these stairs up and out the doors, and it's going to be served there. I know a few of you have to leave early. The pizza is going to be here a little bit early, so if you are, I know one of the faculty members told me that some of their students, they were going to have to leave early. So if that's you, make sure you still exit through the lobby. The pizza should be there for you to grab. I wanted to make sure everyone got that because that's my way of saying thank you for attending this event. Let's see, what else is on here? Oh yeah, last thing I should mention, let's see. Pizza? Nope, that's it, I think we're done. Okay, did I miss anything? I don't think so. Okay, perfect. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our panelists. I know they're the ones that you really want to hear talk today. So right over here, your far left, is Venerable Kangyam from the Mid-America Buddhist Association. Kangyam is originally from Malaysia. She first learned about Buddhism in 2002 after reading The Way to Buddhahood by Venerable Master Yin Shen. Her interest in Buddhism quickly flourished, and she subsequently took refuges and precepts in December 2003. She has an undergraduate degree from Malaysia, a master's degree in forest molecular genetics from Michigan Technical University, and a PhD in molecular plant science from Washington State University as of May 2012. As Venerable Kangyam became more serious in learning Dharma, the interest of joining the Sangha in order to practice and share Dharma with others slowly began to emerge. Consequently, she moved to the Mid-America Buddhist Association to practice here after completing her PhD study. She was ordained in September 2012 as a novice and finished taking her full Bhikshuni ordination in December 2014 in Taiwan. Please get up for Thank you. Next is Rabbi Karen Krieger-Bogard from the Central Reform Congregation. Rabbi Karen Krieger-Bogard grew up in Memphis, Tennessee as part of a proud Southern Jewish family. She graduated from Newcomb College at Tulane University with a double degree in Jewish Studies and Religious Studies, and continued her learning at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, as a rabbinical student. It was at rabbinical school that Karen met her husband Daniel Bogard, and after ordination at the Cincinnati campus, they began sharing a pulpit at Anshe Emeth in Peoria, Illinois. In addition to her pulpit responsibilities, Karen spent much time working as the Judaics director of Peoria Hebrew Day School and creating new and exciting programs for the congregation. Karen and Daniel love working together. It provides them with a life-work balance and gives them time to spend with their three young children, Gabi, Yael, and Noah. After 5 amazing years in Peoria, Karen and Daniel continued their co-rabbi model at Adapt Israel in Cincinnati, Ohio for 2 years. Karen is so excited to now be serving Central Reform Congregation and living in St. Louis. She loves the way CRC feels like an extended family and is very much looking forward to being part of CRC's present and future. Please give up for Rabbi Karen. Thank you for being here. Last but not least, we have Pastor Amy Brooks from the First Unitarian Church of Alton. Amy is a white cisgender Australian who loves a good cup of hot tea, and hates mornings. Amy's pronouns are she, her. She is passionate about social justice and utilizing her privilege to protect and empower the marginalized. Amy shares her home with her wife, Lori, as well as her children, 4 cats, a dog, and assorted extra teenagers. Give it up for Pastor Amy Brooks. Thank you for being here. And now to the fun part, the questions, right? Let me take a seat. All right, well, thank you three for being here today. How are we doing? Doing good? Okay, excited to be here? Okay, good. All right, so let's just jump right in. Would you please tell us about each of your respective religions and what the overall attitude and teaching in those religions is in regards to women, or what the role of women should be? Whoever wants to start, just feel free to popcorn style.
Hi. I bring you greetings from First Unitarian Church of Alton. We are a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. I've been tasked with speaking on a faith tradition that dates back for the last few centuries and has formational roots at least 450 years old, so no pressure, right? Yeah. So who are Unitarian Universalists? We like to say that we are people of deeds and not creeds, and we welcome people of all faiths and no faiths. You might hear people say that Unitarian Universalists don't believe in anything, and I would say it's more accurate to say that we believe in many things, and one of the things we believe in very strongly is that every person has the right to their own beliefs that we support, and that the beliefs that we individually hold, we self-investigate and interrogate in a search for truth and meaning. In my faith tradition, our first principle, I gathered around 7 principles, and we take meaning from 6 sources. And the first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of all people. And so you see that reflected in the involvement of women in our faith. We are one of the earliest organised religions to ordain women, and it is not unusual to have incoming people into ministry to have women outnumber men who are, coming into the informalised ministry. That said, as with many organised religions, we do share a history of problematic upholding of white, male, cisgendered, heterosexual, able-bodied people above others. And so that is a reality that we continue to wrestle with today. And as recently as this week, my faith organisation is still struggling to do better in recognising women. And if we are going to recognise women, that means all women, so including trans women, including black women, including immigrant women. And I do want to just make a note here that I want to affirm the value and presence of non-gendered and agender and genderqueer and non-binary people who are often sidelined when we have this kind of debate. And a little bit, that is the conversation as a whole church that we continue to have.
It's already on.
Did that work?
Can you hear me? Your audio is already on, yeah.
Hi everyone. So I am a rabbi in the stream of Reform Judaism. So just a little bit of history. Judaism today is divided into three main streams of Judaism. There's Orthodox, which I would say are the most stringent when it comes to Judaism and its teachings and commandments. In the middle is Conservative Judaism. And then finally there's Reform Judaism, which is what I am a part of. And we believe in what's called informed choice. So we read the same Torah, which some people know as the Old Testament or the 5 books of Moses. We all read the same Torah, and we all study some of the same sources, but we believe that we should take on and observe those things that are most meaningful to us and add meaning to our lives. So we don't do something just because we're told to do it. We do it because it adds something to who we are and the kind of person we want to be. So my movement started ordaining women in 1972. There were women who were in rabbinical school kind of before that, but there were some complications, and so the first woman was ordained in 1972. There was one other woman who was ordained, I want to say in like 1929, but it was private ordination, and so in 1972 was the first ordination of a major stream, of a woman in a major stream of Judaism. The conservative movement, I think their first woman was ordained in 1985. And just recently, in the past 2 to 3 years, which has been a huge controversy, they've started ordaining women in the Orthodox movement. So it's very much an uphill battle. And we sort of, a lot of us know each other and we work together and we support each other through this. But in my movement, we have a lot of female rabbis. My class in rabbinical school, I was ordained in 2011. My class was 2/3 women. So out of 42 students, 2/3 of them were women, which is pretty remarkable that in such a short amount of time, we went from like one woman in a class to the majority. And while I've certainly had struggles of being female clergy, overall it's been a really positive experience and I felt very supported.
So good afternoon everyone. So I'm representing Buddhist religions. And before that, I would like to give you a brief history about Buddhism. So Buddhism originated in India, Ganges River region. So when Buddhism spread around the world, there are two major routes. The first is through the northern route, through Central Asia to Asia. There is the northern traditions, or we call it Mahayana tradition nowadays. And another route is towards the southern routes and went to Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, and Southeast Asia region. So this tradition, we call it the Theravada tradition nowadays. And another tradition is in Tibet, that is the Tibetan traditions. So we have three major traditions of Buddhism in the world nowadays. And actually I'm coming from the Mahayana traditions, okay? So in the Buddhist teachings, we believe that all humans, so both genders, both men and women, have the same chance, and qualities to achieve the same goal in the spiritual practice, And in the practice, the ultimate practice in Buddhism is to reach the ultimate liberations. Means we want to free from all kinds of sufferings and stresses. Or we call it another way is we want to reach the ultimate freedom and happiness. Okay. So towards the goal, everybody have the same chance as long as we practice according to the teachings, according to the way properly. Okay. But back to the reality, in order to practice, we have to form our own professional groups, communities. So people like me, as a female monks, in the Mahayana traditions, we still carry the orders. That means in the Mahayana traditions, we still have the female and the males group assembly. So for me as a female, a fully ordained female monks, we call ourselves bhikkhunis. Okay, so I'm a bhikkhuni, and for men, there is a bhikkhu. In the Mahayana traditions, we have both bhikkhu and bhikkhunis orders. But in the Theravada traditions, there are still bhikkhus is the dominant one. So some females try to revive, the bhikkhunis order in the Theravada traditions, but they are still in effort to do so. So in the aspect of as a females monks, I think Mahayana is much fortunate compared to the other two traditions, because in the Mahayana we have a very equal and complete system in the way of practice and live together. So let me explain a bit the way we live and the way we practice, okay? So we have in a community, we have both monastic and lay people. Monastic means people like me. I live as we live the life of celibacy. That means we don't have family, we don't get married, but we live in a group. So everybody as a community. So in the monastic community, we live in the same temple, but we have different buildings. Like we have the male quarters and the female quarters. But we do eat together, work together, practice together, but live separately. And we devoted our time, full time, 24 hours in the practice and to serve the community. This is the role as a monastic. Whereas we also have the lay community, people like the ordinary people like you still can practice, but you don't have to wear uniform like me, okay? You don't have to shave your hair, you still look like every one of you. But you believe it and you try to practice the teachings in your daily life, whether you can be a teacher, lawyer, dentist or artist, student, whatever you can do, you can go back to your society and do all this. But at the same time, you believe this and realize it in your life. So a complete Sangha, Buddhist Sangha, consists of both monastic and lay practitioner. So in the female Sangha like me, actually we have a very systematic and complete way of training. That means the more senior will train the junior one. So the more experienced will guide the less experienced one. That is how we move up to be a more experienced in both the spiritual practice and also in carry out the services in the community. That is the basic way of our structure in the community.
Thank you. So moving into your personal experiences, what have your personal journeys been to getting into leadership positions, and what kind of opposition and encouragement have you been met with along the way? Again, whoever wants to go first.
It's already on.
So it's how do we get to our leadership positions and what are we encountered along the way?
Yes.
My story is a little bit different. I share a job with my husband. He's also a rabbi. So I feel fortunate because I know that I have lots of female clergy friends who very much struggle at times with different parts of their positions, and so I'm grateful that I have my husband to help negotiate contracts and do things like that. So I don't have like a very traditional rabbinate. We've job shared since we were ordained in 2011. We are essentially a job and a quarter, whatever that means. It means even though I think we're paid part-time, we work full-time, which is fine. So my biggest challenges came, some of them happened, my first pulpit was in Peoria, and we building shared with like a conservadox congregation, so more than conservative, but some people were Orthodox and some people were not. And they had never had a female clergy around before, and there were some not so nice comments, which I corrected. So I think you just have, I've learned that I have to be kind but assertive in getting to where I am today. There's a term for a rabbi's wife, it's rebbitzin. So I am a rebbitzin because I'm married to a rabbi, but I'm also a rabbi. And so I would have lots of people refer to me as a rebbitzin, which I would laugh and say, yes, but my husband is also a rebbitzin because he's also married to a rabbi. So just, there are always things like that, there are comments like that. And one other thing I just feel like I should point out is that even though my class was 2/3 women, the majority of senior rabbis in large congregations are still men. So even though we might have more women in the rabbinate at some point than men are still holding those top leadership positions. And I think women are starting to work into those positions just by sheer numbers and how long we've been in the rabbinate. But that's certainly been an uphill struggle for myself and for a lot of my colleagues that I talk to a lot. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, so I grew up in a conservative Christian home, and one of the key teachings of that belief is that women should not be clergy, so there's that. Also, gay people shouldn't be clergy, so again, there's that. Right? So sometimes to get to where you are, you need to unpack the beliefs that you were handed as a child. And you need to discern for yourself, is this something that I'm willing to take on, or is it something that I have decided is not true for me? And you can guess where I went with those two. For myself, I do feel really well supported by my congregation and by my faith tradition. I will agree that also in the Unitarian Universalist Association, the majority of large prominent churches have male ministers, and churches that are calling ministers to interview, statistically you're more likely to get an interview if you're a male minister than if you're a female minister, so that is still a reality today. By and large, I most brought to attention of my femininity in ministry when I interact with people outside of the UU organizational structure, particularly in churches that don't affirm women in ministry. I'll turn up at a community event where many different churches have sent representatives to interact, and I'll be greeted at the door with, "Oh, you must be the pastor's wife," which again is true because I am also married to a pastor, but she also is the pastor's wife. And in this setting, I let it operate as the minister. So I think many of us, women in ministry, have had that experience in some form or another. And it can be something that is a humorous misunderstanding, and then it can also be a real barrier of access to places of power. And that is something to be mindful of. The work of feminism is about gaining access to places of power, because the people who have power can at times misuse it against people who do not. And so myself, as a white feminist, I am always mindful of where I am obstructed from, and also the spaces where I am made welcome, but my black colleagues are not made welcome.
Okay. So, as a female monk in my tradition, I consider myself the lucky one because since I joined the Sangha, my teachers, they are bhikkhus. I also have teachers as bhikkhunis. So both my teachers, from both genders are very open-minded, and they are very fair. In terms of the teachings, in terms of giving instructions. So, and there's one thing that I would like to introduce to you about the background here, because Buddhism in America is a very new, young religion. Okay, so the Sangha is not really mature or rooted in this country yet. But back in Asia, where the Buddhist country where I was trained, for example, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, that I've been to. So in Taiwan, because in the Sangha or in the Buddhist community, 2/3 of the members, both the monastic and the lay, are females. So many positions in the organization is held by females. Okay. And these female leaders that I met with, they are very capable and they are experienced and they are aware of the equality, the gender equality too. So back in 1970s, even before I was born, we have these bhikkhunis leader. They are stood up and then fight for the equality between, especially for the little girls, who have no chance to get educations because of the family conditions, because of the poverty, So really it started long before the Buddhist leaders already see this problem and they want to fight for it, and this is really strive for the welfare in the society. So this is one of the awareness that have been always worked for. But in Malaysia it's the same too. So Malaysia is a multiracial country and it's also multi-religious. Okay. So what I really see is that even the governments and also the temples where I train in and where I live, they all really heavily depends on female. As I said, 2/3 of them are females. Okay, so we don't really have problems about whether it only belongs to men or females, because female is always the dominant. But in other traditions, maybe it's a difference. For example, in Theravada traditions, that you can see in Thailand, Burma, or Sri Lanka, where they only have the bhikkhus order. So now, even especially recently, other people like us, we try to encourage female, to really have the same status like us, because we really believe that both men and females have the same right and same potentials in the practice and also in spreading these teachings to the people in the society.
Thank you. And this has already been touched on a little bit, but maybe we can dive a bit more into it. But in what ways have women historically been oppressed or silenced within religion, and what are some modern forms of oppression that women are experiencing, and how they may be different and how they may be similar?
So, traditional Judaism, which was mostly, I would say, Orthodox, Reform Judaism, didn't start until late 1800s, and it is the largest stream of Judaism in America today. But if you were to walk into an Orthodox synagogue of today, or of the past 1,000 years or whatever, women sit separate from the men. They tend to sit behind a curtain or some sort of barrier so that they can't be seen. I guess the best image would be like a choir loft. Like the men would be down and the women would be up in the choir loft, if that gives you an image. Traditionally, women in Judaism are not supposed to be heard. It's called kol isha. It means the voice of a woman. which is one of the biggest problems with women clergy and Orthodoxy. You're not supposed to be distracted by a woman in prayer, because we're so distracting. So we, for thousands of years, were forced to sit separate, to sort of, even at wedding celebrations and things of that sort, there would be, it's called a mechitza, a barrier between the women and the men. So I would say for a lot of Judaism's history, we've been second-class citizens. That changed with Reform Judaism, and even conservative Judaism, many do not separate their seating. But I think because of that history, it's been even more of an uphill struggle for those women that were fighting against that. But it's never been a part of Reform Judaism. Reform Judaism has, since its birth, has been egalitarian. So we've had both women and men in leadership positions within the synagogue. Yes, and especially since when we were starting to be ordained in 1972. Can you repeat? Sorry, I feel like I just want to hear this.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So in what ways have women historically been oppressed and silenced within your religion, and what are modern forms of oppression that women are experiencing today?
Thank you for repeating.
Yeah, no problem.
So the other piece I will add, and it's not really oppression as much as just sort of the way things are, because of the problem of hearing a woman's voice. There are times when someone will pass away that, like, my husband is asked to be the funeral specifically because he's a man. Or usually with funerals, but there have been times with weddings and just things where there's Orthodox family and so they don't want female clergy, which I used to find very hurtful and have sort of realized that that's just the way it is. So I can dwell on it, or I can work to change that image in the instances that I can with people. And as far as oppression goes today, I don't know. It's not really something in our movement, I'll be honest. I mean, there's certainly, I'm sure, people who feel that way. They probably don't belong to my congregation. We have 2 female clergy and 2 male clergy, and they aren't going to assign one of us based on who we are to do something. It's all equal. We are all equal in our congregation. But I know that women who practice in the other streams of Judaism are certainly, at times, can still feel like second-class citizens, and like they don't really have a voice or a place in their religions.
Yeah, I want to give like a little theological answer, if I may. And thank you, we share many similarities. Yeah. So both of the churches that make up what is now the Unitarian Universalist Church, so the Unitarian Church and the Universalist Church, and I won't go into a double history lecture, you're welcome. Both of those churches come by and large from the Christian tradition, and the Christian tradition speaks of the person of Jesus, who died on the cross, as the perfect person, as an atonement for sins. Okay? I think you might be familiar with this idea. You by and large, don't adhere to the divinity of Jesus in the same way the Christian church does. So I want to be speaking respectfully and fondly of Jesus, and also to say that oppression within churches, even like the UU that have come from that tradition, theologically the message is that the perfect human is male, right? So if you have a female body, or if you have a trans body, or if you have a genderqueer, non-binary, agender body, then whatever you do in life, you will never have the perfection of the male body. And that is a belief that historically has been overtly stated and enforced and taught. All right. As well as a belief that has been subversive, right? Written into hymns, used in boardroom language in faith communities including in the UUA tradition. And so that is, when we see oppression, it can be rooted in the superiority of the male body above all other bodies. We're seeing wonderful theologians who are unpacking that and unpacking the ancient texts, some of which come from the sources of meaning that we draw from, who are doing sort of a queering of the Bible or queering of theology in ways that are really liberating for non-cisgender heteronormative people. And so where we see oppression today, in my organization, there is a conversation about race, which impacts black women. There is a conversation about trans people, and we are earnestly at the task of failing and falling down and having to be reminded and being brought up, and it's an ongoing process, but addressing that reality within not just our congregations, but within, to the very top of the organization, to the mothership, as we say, in Boston, where the church offices are. So I hope that goes some way to answering the question.
It does, yes, thank you.
Yeah. So the sharing experience from Amy and Karen's, you remind me about something that not I experienced directly, but what I heard, what I observed, not really in my practice experience is actually we do, in other countries. As I said, I'm the minority who are really lucky because since I learned and practiced from my teachers, they gave me the idea is that this Buddhism is really equal for both genders, So they treat me equally, and then they respect my potential in the practice and in doing things, But then once I went to travel to other Buddhist countries, that I see different phenomena, that I see that actually back then women, especially when Buddhism is originated in India, and India is really, their tradition is, their custom is male dominant. That means man is the powerful one, so woman is the subordinate. They have to listen and obey to the men. Okay, so because of the national tradition, so and merged with Buddhism, so even in the traditions, in the original traditions, in order to face with the reality, so the female has the idea that they are always lower than the man. It's not because of the Buddhism itself, but it's because it's deep inside in the idea that I'm lower than the men. That's why they lower themselves. Okay, this is one thing, and the second thing is that it's because the lack of the opportunity to get the educations. Because of lack of educations and women, especially back then, they have to marry, because of the forced marriage arranged by the parents or because of the poverty faced by the family. That's why they just couldn't go to the school. They have to really depend on the husband and then go to the workplace and earn money early. Because of the lack of the experience in education, in job opportunity, that's why they are always, in the ability side, they always lack of ability, in order to be equal with the men. This is one problem that I really see, even nowadays. Because after I travel to other countries, that I see that, even it doesn't happen to me, but many, especially in the lower or the grassroots families, they have the belief, but they just don't have the chance to learn, to improve themselves, to develop more skills in order to improve their life, improve their own ability so that they can stay equal with the men.
Thank you. Let's see. So how would you say, the oppression, the silencing of women, how is it affecting their desire to enter into leadership positions? And how does it affect women who are already in leadership positions?
So my organisation first ordained a woman in the Universalist Church who became a Unitarian in the 1860s, I believe. And then immediately the church that ordained her kind of got really scared and maybe changed their mind a little bit. So, you think you're groundbreaking, but then the next thing that's happening is everyone's taking a step backwards. And that's just the history of uplifting minority groups through time, really. And really in the 1970s, again, the church made a statement affirming women and in ministry, and at that time there were only 5% of ministers were women, and that's very different to how it is now. But again, would you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. How does those forms of oppression or silencing women, how does it affect their desire to enter into leadership roles?
Right. So I'm wanting to say that historically it's a faith that has welcomed women from early on, despite the stumbles. And I don't speak to candidates of ministry who express that they have been, that the church has kept them out of ministry. There are many structures in society that make it more difficult for a woman to enter into ministry than for a man. For example, in the United States, there is no system of paid maternity leave, and some women do want to have children. That financial piece, the societal piece that women struggle against, that a man may not, is certainly something that will be an obstacle or a barrier to entry into formal ministry.
So about these, maybe I will say like this. Just like I mentioned, again, different traditions. Okay, so now I think nowadays one very fortunate thing is now it's a globalized world. That means we can communicate using the devices, iPhone, iPad, and the internet, and also we have able to fly to other countries, more interactions between countries. And because of this, so what we can do is, like the females leaders in Buddhism, when we know that there are other, despite of the different traditions, but once we know that, in that area or in this poor country, that society, they need more help, then people for the females, Buddhist leaders, that they know that they will try to go, make donation, contribution to the places where needs are more needed. They will build schools, hospitals, and then donations to improve the local infrastructures, to improve their life quality as an overall, and also improve, that's why also provide them more chances of learning. So in terms of leadership, I would really see that because of the interactions, the international interactions that help us to get more support from other traditions, other temples, other communities to the places where needs are more. Okay, so I think in this way, we, especially from now I see lots of efforts that made by the Taiwanese, Malaysians, Buddhists, that they try to deliver their support to the places where it's more needed. I think this helps, to narrow the gaps between different regions.
It's already on.
Sorry. So I'll add on to a little bit of what what's been set up here already. I think some of what holds women back is certainly things that happen in society. I have a 7-year-old and twin 5-year-olds, and being a working mom is quite a challenge, especially when there isn't a lot of paid maternity leave. clergy in Judaism tend to work very long hours, which is part of the reason my husband and I job share, is so we can see our kids once in a while. But I think those are real demands. I grew up babysitting for my rabbis. They were never home. I knew that. And I knew that they were doing good in the world, and I respected them for that. But I think certainly the challenges of running a congregation and being a parent is real. So I would say that's certainly one conversation I've had with many women who are thinking of going into the rabbinate. What that looks like, what the language is in their contract, things like that. I clearly wasn't a part of, before a woman was ordained in 1972, I've read about that struggle, but I've sort of watched what's been happening in the Orthodox world with women in the past 5 years that have started to be ordained, and it has split the movement. There is now a separate school for women that is not recognized by the main Orthodox body, and congregations are now having to choose whether to belong to the Orthodox Union or whether to hire female clergy. And some have chosen to keep their female clergy, and some have chosen to release their female clergy so they can stay a member of the Orthodox Union. So I think that in and of itself, it's quite a struggle. I've talked to women who have gone through this program, and some of them have supportive families, and some of them don't have supportive families. And so I know that struggle is very real for them as they sort of chart their own path. And I've watched that closely because I know that it wasn't as bad in my movement, but I've heard stories of, from the first woman who was ordained in our movement and women leading up to that, and it was not easy. And so I think family certainly, but also your family of origin and how they feel about your career choice and how that reflects back on the family is real also.
And if I might add, there's a conversation to be had about wealth privilege as well, and that exists in my organisation too. We understand that women are paid less than men for doing the same jobs. Women of colour are paid even less than white women. Hispanic women are paid least of all. And going through the process towards affiliation or ordination is not free. You need an undergraduate degree. A seminary degree will run you anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000 depending on where you go. You need to buy books, you will need to meet with committees, you will need to pay for your own transportation and accommodation when you fly to other parts of the country to meet with those committees. And the reality is that for many women that is a real and substantial barrier to formalised ministry.
Thank you all. How has equality for women in religious leadership roles improved, and what still needs to be done? Absolutely, there you go.
So, I jokingly said we had heard that we are here, so clearly we have all made it. As far as improvement goes, this is a bit more of a personal one, but because my husband is also a rabbi, I see how people speak to him and the kinds of questions they ask him and the kinds of comments they make to him, and they are radically different from the kinds of comments that I get at times. My first pulpit was also my student pulpit, so part of my rabbinical school training is we serve smaller congregations that we either fly to or drive to, some once a month, some twice a month, and I ended up staying at my student pulpit and moving to that city with my husband, and one of my congregants, who is very sweet, came up to me and she looked at me and she said, "So now that you're ordained, when are you going to cut your hair off?" No one would ever make a comment like that to my husband about his appearance. I get comments like that all the time. I get comments. One time I wasn't feeling well and I had to go to work and I literally threw on the first thing I could find, and they were blue pants, they weren't even blue jeans, and I had 2 people ask me about wearing jeans to work, and my husband wears jeans to work all the time. So there's definitely a double standard. It's hard, I think, as we try not to have that, it exists. I think it's something we have to be conscious of. I think it's a constant daily battle of making sure people are treated equally, and that's all people, not just women and men in leadership positions, but I think we have to be very conscious of what we say and how we say it and how people are going to hear it and receive that. So I've had lots of sort of offhand comments like that over the years that I've had to respond to, and I think it's also sometimes as a woman I struggle to respond to those because then you're too overbearing or you're too harsh, or you can imagine all that happens. But I think whereas I think my husband can speak more freely at times, I'm very conscious of what I say and how I say it and how it's going to be received, because I know that there are underlying assumptions about being a woman in a leadership position.
Talking about improvement that we need, well, I would like to say that Buddhism is still a very young religion in this country. We are not really firmly rooted yet in this country, so not even to mention how to improve yet. So what we really strive for right nowadays is really how to really localize in this country, in the Western country, and also to establish ourselves too. And actually, we, as a Buddhist monastic, we are not being paid. Everything run in the temples is fully 100% depends on the contributions from the society. So everything have to spend wisely. And also another issue is most of the monastic like me, we are not the local people here. Many are the immigrants, from the Asia. So there are many challenges, when the Asians people come to this country. First is the language, second is the culture, and also living style and all this. They need to how to adapt. So these are the efforts that when the monastic from the Asia come to this country, that they really have to put in effort, to learn the language here and to know the culture, to know the value here, so that they can adapt to it and so that they can merge with it. These are the efforts that we are doing now. And for example, doing lots of translation so that our scriptures can be understood and read by the Westerners and so on. So we hope that at least the basics, the basics that I mentioned, once we have less language barrier, culture barrier, and then more get involved into the local communities, then we can see how the Buddhism, once they come to this country, can be localized and form its own way, so that the Westerner can have a more accurate and comprehensive understanding about the Buddhist teachings. And then we found a way how do we integrated the Western values with the Buddhist value, because some of the core teachings in the Buddhist teachings is really a universal value. For example, when we talk about world peace, non-violence, mindfulness, to have a mind free, all this is universal, it belongs to all humankind. So we hope that once we have the basic or the foundation is rooted and can be localized, then we can talk about how to further improve and spread it out to in this land.
Thank you. So what would you say that women, particularly those who are seeking those leadership roles in their religion or denomination, what can they do to advocate for equality for themselves and for other women?
Yeah, so it's that conversation about what is my individual versus my corporate responsibility. I would say to someone who is looking at beginning the process of formalized ministry in the UUA that you're a great organization. I feel greatly privileged to be a part of a faith tradition where the key aspects of my identity, of me as a divorced, remarried, female, lesbian, immigrant, non-citizen human, where all of those things, right, are not liabilities, but they are assets. to my faith tradition. So one, welcome to a place where we really want to affirm all of who you are. And then also that there are those areas that the organisation is still weak on, and so to be aware of them and to not let them in any way diminish you as a person. So that's the individual piece. And then the corporate piece is really to be agitating for change when you observe that change needs to be happening. And that to me means in a congregational level, in the higher structures of the faith organisation, and honestly it means in a society level as well. And that means pushing back politically against structures that harm and diminish.
So I agree with everything that Amy said. And I think I would add that you do have to keep pushing the envelope, but also find your allies. And they might not be people that you would normally think of as allies, but find your people. There are lots of people fighting these battles for equality. And I think it's important that we work together in our communities and in our congregations to push back against all of those set structures that need to be changed.
And I really agree with what you said just now. It really depends on how we look at things, If we see that it's in a negative side or positive side. If you look at the positive side, you can see that all this, what you have experienced, what you possess, is an asset. It's not obstacles. So in my religions, my belief, the teachings that I understand, the core essence of Buddhism is really talking a lot about equality. We talk about all beings, all human beings have the same right and same potentials to reach the final goal as long as we put in diligence, and according to the teachings. It's just up to the people around us, the society, how they look at it, how much they understand it, to really understand what is the values in it. Okay. So even in our own, the community within us, it really depends on each individual, how they look at things. So my idea is like this. As long as we strive for, to really work hard to have to build up our own virtues, our own abilities, then these abilities and virtue will eventually earn the respect from other people. Okay, we don't have to really fight. Of course, we need to have some rules and regulations to make sure that it's equal, so that both genders have the same right to access to certain things. But within each of us, we should just really focus on how to build up ourselves, to develop, to upgrade ourselves, so that eventually, even though they don't, eventually we will earn the respect from all other people too.
Thank you. And kind of wrapping this up, this is going to be my last question before we take it to the audience. What can others, particularly maybe like men or the religious institutions themselves, do to advocate for equality for women in those leadership positions?
So I'll just give an example to answer the question. We have, my rabbinic movement has a Facebook page, like so many places do, and there's all sorts of discussions that happen on this Facebook page. And someone recently posted a flyer for a panel. It was happening in Florida, and every participant on the panel was a man. And the question came up, where are the women? Of course. Because today, you would expect, especially a panel in the Reform movement of Judaism, there would be at least, hopefully, one female rabbi. And there were no women on this panel. And so the conversation, it was interesting. The men were all defending. They're like, oh, it's okay, like this is because of X, Y, and Z, that's why we have all these men. And the women were pushing back and saying, it's your job to make sure that there's a woman on the panel. That it can't fall solely on women to make these strides. We have to have our allies. We have to have men who also see these things and who push for equality in these areas as well. So I think that's, what I'm saying.
Thank you.
And I want to add, there's all sorts of logistical ways that men can affirm and uplift women, and there's all sorts of logistical ways that any person can affirm and uplift a minority or a vulnerable person. If you're in a meeting and a woman is speaking, one, don't interrupt. Two, if you hear something great that they've said that the rest of the people are not listening to, then repeat it and name the person, name the woman who said it, right? So there's lots of ideas like that, and I think those are really helpful. And also, maybe the most important and key thing that I would urge men and, again, straight white men who are cisgendered to consider is the internal work of looking at people who are different to you and really reminding yourself of their value and worth and humanity. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have the responsibility that share, I think, among different regions to really spread this message that we try to look at people's, value, their values not depends on the gender, but really see the good things, the positive things, the potentials in every one of us. It's not because of the gender differences. I think this is the message that we need to share, that we have the responsibility to share this message out.
Thank you. Okay, well with that, let's go ahead and take it to the audience. We have a couple, like I mentioned before, a couple mic runners, so we'll take the mic to you. But does the audience have any questions for our panelists? Don't be shy.
My question is, are there certain areas that you go that you find a little more difficult, like certain geographical areas that you guys go to, that are there more different places in different countries or different areas that you go to that are a little more accepting? Like, where is that, and like what experiences have you had with acceptance and rejection in different areas that you've been in, and what are those areas?
Yeah, sure. I think if I'm understanding correctly, basically the question was, are there different geographical areas that maybe experience more gender inequality than others, and what are those areas, if any?
Yeah, so as someone who has been in formal ministry in, for example, Illinois and also in Tennessee, I can definitely speak to differences. That was in a different faith tradition to the one I'm in now, but I can affirm or confirm that it is more difficult, or was more difficult for me and my female clergy colleagues to find full-time churches in the South than it is here in Illinois, although Illinois isn't particularly northern. I like to call it the North and the South. And I want to say, as a queer woman, there are spaces where my wife and I move where we are less likely to hold hands, or where we are more private about who we are in our relationship, and that includes some church spaces as well.
Well, I mean, in America, as overall, in United States overall, I don't see the issue is very serious in this country yet, because Buddhism is still quite new here. But some new temples, I will really see that they need more support from the local communities in the overall. But back in Asia, in certain countries, yes, I really see that. As I said, I'm the minority lucky one. But in many other places where they are really poor and undeveloped, that is very obvious. That is what we really try to help to, yeah. It's not because I'm lucky there, so I don't see the issue. It doesn't happen that way. There's still, this problem is still quite, it's still serious. I mean, it's still obvious in other countries, that I see in poor country villages like in Myanmar, in Thailand. I really wish that they have a better education opportunity in all of that.
I think, let's see, there are definitely places that I go where I don't wear my kippah, or I make sure I'm not wearing a Jewish star. Those have less to do with being a woman, and I think more to do with just being Jewish, and there are still certain areas of this country where there are assumptions made about Jewish people. So I'm very careful about like revealing my Jewish identity. Surprisingly, the place that I felt the least amount of equality was my year in Israel. I spent a year living in Jerusalem as part of our rabbinical school training. It's our first year. And Jerusalem is as many people know, it's a very highly religiously charged city. And I would feel uncomfortable going out for a jog in shorts. I felt uncomfortable if I wasn't completely covered head to toe. And so that made me very aware of what some people, I'm sure, experience on a daily basis. But it was the first time as a woman that I felt like I couldn't outwardly be myself. I also never told anyone in Israel that I was studying to be a rabbi because 99% of the rabbis in Israel are all men. And I didn't want to get into that theological debate. So that's where I think I felt the least equal. I haven't felt it as much since I became a rabbi, and I don't feel it as much in America, but I do feel it with my Jewish identity.
Thank you.
Hi, Neil. So I was curious about some of the women that have helped you throughout your journey and have encouraged you, because I'm a nursing student here, and I know that my success hasn't only been from God, but it's from women like Jen Klein down there and Elizabeth Graham. So I'm just curious about, if any of you or all of you want to tell me about somebody that's pushed you and encouraged you.
Just to kind of rephrase that question. So has there been maybe a specific female in your life, perhaps a mentor or something, who has kind of been there along your journey to kind of encourage you, guide you, things of that nature?
Yeah, I've lived in a lot of places, and I'm not from around here originally, and so I can't really point to one person, but every community that I have lived in, I have developed that kind of relationship with at least one other woman in the area. A really significant person in my life was my mum. I lost her when I was 16. And I remember her being very devoted and faithful and inhabiting her womanhood in ways that were meaningful to her, and she just didn't really care whether society expected her to perform womanhood in that way. She just chased her enthusiasms and did what she believed was right.
Yeah, I think for me, in the monastic sangha, people come from different backgrounds. So when I joined the sangha, then we don't know each other. But because of the belief that we share, and because it's just the way that they show to the newcomer, new people like me when I first joined, that I can really see that they are very compassionate, very patient, about new people. When a new person who don't know anything, they really show their patience and encouragement, And especially in United States, we are just a small group, we are not like a big group, like we have 50, hundreds in a temple. We only have 4 or 5 people in our temple. So we just live like a family, like the senior guided the junior. So this form the bond, even though we are not family members, but the relationship with other female monastics in our temple is just like a family. That is how we so close to each other and support each other and help out with each other. This is what made me feel very encouraging, and to build up with confidence and the faith in my individual practice and as well as serving the community.
So I would also say my mom and my grandma. My grandmother grew up in Mississippi in a very small town, and yet they traveled 25 miles down a dirt road to go to synagogue every Friday night. And I find that really inspiring, that she had that much devotion. And that continued, like she's still alive, but we went to synagogue together all the time. She told me, so she's 80, and she'll be 90 this September. She told me that if she had lived in a different time, she would have wanted to become a rabbi. I also very much remember the two female rabbis that served in my congregation when I was growing up. I was really inspired by them. I wrote my rabbinical school entrance essay about them, one of my essays, about them. And they fought battles such as wearing pants on the bima. No women who wore pants on the bima before. This one rabbi in particular had come to our congregation, and it was an uproar over wearing pants on the bima. So I feel grateful to have these women who came before me, because these are battles that I haven't had to fight necessarily. And I also just want to mention the rabbi who started the congregation that I'm at now. Many congregations are started by men, but this one was started by a woman in 1984. She is amazing. She also has been someone who's been really inspiring and someone that I have learned a lot from and hope to continue to learn from.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Hi. So in your conversations, you said a lot about how men dominate this leadership role and women are coming up and taking the leadership roles. In short, would you say that the most negative energy or comments or support that you receive, is it from women or is it from men? And if it's from women, is it changing or is it still the same?
Can you repeat that last part of that question, Samantha? You said the most negative energy is coming from women or men?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that negative energy of inequality, would you say that is more coming from men or women, both?
Yeah, a little of both, and some of that is because many women are enculturated into that belief of inferiority.
Well, I would like to say that since two-thirds of our members are females, so honestly, sometimes the challenges is from the female itself. Yeah, it's not because it's not. I think it's just because of different in personalities. Just like in every places when different people come together, it's just because the maybe different personalities, approaches, just characters that you work with, that the challenges come. So it's more. I would like to say it's more within our own the female group. If it happens, okay.
Yeah, so I believe the question was just any negative energy or maybe any kind of inequality, does it come from all men, all women? Is it both?
I think it also comes from both, for sure. I think also from both sides it happens sometimes without anyone even naming it or recognizing that it's happening. But yeah, I would say it comes from both.
I think we have time for one more question, if there is another one.
Hello. So my question is, I've attended churches in the area off and
something that I've kind of personally felt conflicted with is that I don't necessarily feel the same way. I know what the doctrine says and about being gay or being, female leader. And I don't, in my heart, I don't feel like that's right. But I don't know, it's like when you go to a church and you feel like you belong there, but yet you don't feel the same in some ways. And how does one approach maybe interacting with others to help them open up? Or, do you sometimes have a different way of approaching it? Maybe sometimes are you more brash or bold and sometimes more understated in how you handle it? Because I try to live by the Spirit, but it's like, how do you deal with that inner conflict within yourself and then also with people in your congregation? I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it did.
Well, I think if I can try to paraphrase, I think I understand what you're asking. I think really the question is, as a leader, how do you balance following that, religious call of kind of kindness and compassion and things like that, but then also balancing that with your inner leadership role, and sometimes you have to tell it like it is and crack the whip. So how do you balance that call to have love and compassion, but then also being a leader and kind of taking charge when necessary? What's your approach to that? I think you stumped them, Robin.
Sorry, can I just ask, are you thinking in terms particularly of where we have disagreements, of where we disagree with each other?
Yeah, it can be taken that way. Like, I'll give you a specific example. I remember going to church, and my friend is gay, and we talked about visiting one another's church. But I knew, I was at the time attending a Baptist church, which was much more conservative, and I accepted their differences, and on the surface, I think they accepted mine. But at the same time, it was really hard for me to, we talked about visiting, and I didn't feel in my heart that she would necessarily be welcome there, and that was bothersome, and I ended up leaving that church. But it's like, how do you approach that when you face that situation where you just feel fundamentally like you see something, you feel different? I believe in Christ as my Savior. That's my, religion or whatever. But then sometimes the Bible dictates something different. And, how do you find your way when you have those inner conflicts or conflicts with your church? I don't know if that made it more clear.
So I want to uplift and affirm the qualities that you've named of love and mercy and compassion. And I want to suggest the possibility that perhaps the primary person in all of our lives to whom we owe those qualities is ourselves. And so sometimes you will be in a situation where the most loving and kind and compassionate thing you can do to care for yourself, because your own self is your greatest responsibility, is to leave that situation. And there's room in this conversation for sometimes you need to be the person who's agitating and pushing and making for change, or having the dialogue and having the conversation and unpacking our differences. And also, I don't believe that in the spiritual life there's any room for spiritual abuse. And so if you're experiencing that in your faith community, then I want to give you permission to love yourself first.
There's a rabbi who has passed away. He's a modern philosopher. His name is David Hartman, Rabbi David Hartman. He founded what's called the Sheldon Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. And he teaches that if ethics and Torah do not combine, you choose ethics. And you figure out a way to make the Torah work with ethics. And for me, I know what's right or wrong. I feel it in my heart. I know how I feel, and I will always choose the ethical, loving, inclusive path over what my religion would teach me.
Maybe I can share a bit how Buddhists look at this issue. Well, what we really concern is how to purify ourselves as an individuals, means how we practice to remove the greed, the desires, the selfish desires, and the hatreds and all this ignorance in some individuals, and how to cultivate the positive values like loving kindness, compassion, and selfless, serving others, be generous. These are the positive values that we look for, that we cherish the most. So no matter what is your gender inclinations, this is not the root issues. What we really see is, what we really appreciate a lot is, no matter what is your gender inclination, it is really how you develop to see your own potentials, to see your own strengths, and contribute, and to serve, to contribute all the potentials inside you, the positive potentials inside you, to make the world better. That is what we really concerned about, more than your gender issue.
All right, well that kind of wraps it up for us. Thank you again to our panelists for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the audience for being here and listening and participating. And just a huge thank you to all the people that I mentioned before that were a part of making this happen. Really, it's because of you that this event is possible. So make sure if you haven't, you sign the sign-in sheet. Make sure you exit through the lobby so that you can pick up some free pizza and drinks on your way out. Have a wonderful day, everyone.